Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into a really complex and fascinating topic in public health: vaccine hesitancy. We're going to break down the key findings from a World Health Organization expert group to really get our heads around this global challenge.
Okay, so before we get into the puzzle, let's just start with a simple, undeniable fact. The evidence is just overwhelming. Vaccines have saved millions upon millions of lives. They've totally transformed global health and are, without a doubt, a cornerstone of modern medicine.
And that brings us to the core question, right? If vaccines are this incredible success story, why are we seeing more and more people delaying them, or in some cases, refusing them altogether? Let's dig in and figure out what's really going on. Now, this is not just some academic debate. To keep diseases that we can prevent at bay, we need to have really high vaccination rates. It's that simple. When those numbers drop, it creates a very real and very immediate risk of outbreaks coming back. And this isn't happening in just one place. We see this popping up all over the world, with all different kinds of vaccines. Think back to the 2009 flu pandemic, where lots of pregnant women who were at high risk were hesitant. We've seen it with the measles vaccine in Europe, the HPV vaccine in places like Japan and India, and even with the polio vaccine in parts of Nigeria and Pakistan.
So, what do we actually mean when we say vaccine hesitancy? I mean, to really solve a problem, you first have to agree on what it is you're trying to solve.
The expert group gives us a really clear definition. It's delaying or refusing vaccines even when they are available. And that last part is absolutely crucial. This isn't about people not being able to get to a clinic. This is something else entirely. And it's so important to get this. Hesitancy is not a simple yes or no. It's not an on-off switch. It exists on a whole spectrum. And it's super specific to the time, the place, and even the exact vaccine we're talking about. This complexity is exactly why there's no magic bullet, no single easy fix. So, with a problem this messy, what's the game plan? Well, the Strategic Advisory Group of Experts, also known as SAGE, they put together a set of recommendations that really serve as a global strategy to tackle this challenge head on. And the strategy has this really smart three-step logic to it. First, you have to understand what's actually causing the hesitancy in a specific community. Then you build the capacity on the ground, get the right people with the right skills in place to address those causes. And finally, you share what works so that everyone can learn from it. It's all about moving from insight to action in a coordinated way. Okay, that's the high-level strategy, but what does it actually look like when you put it into practice? So what does building capacity really mean? Well, it means you need to assemble a dream team. And I'm not just talking about doctors. You need sociologists who get community dynamics, behavioral psychologists who understand decision-making, and communications experts who know how to craft the right message. And a massive piece of the puzzle is empowering the people right there on the front lines. A recommendation from a local doctor or nurse, that can be one of the single most powerful influences on a person's decision. That's why making sure they have the training to understand and address hesitancy is absolutely critical. And this really hammers home a key principle. One size does not fit all. You have to tailor your approach. A fantastic example is this thing called the Tailoring Immunization Programs, or TIP model. It's basically a toolkit that helps health officials diagnose the specific local reasons for low vaccine uptake and then design a strategy that's custom fit to that community's needs. So, where does all this leave us? I think the big takeaway is that vaccine hesitancy isn't a problem we solve once and then walk away from. It's going to require a constant evolving focus from the public health community. And one thing the expert group was really clear on is that the research cannot stop. We need more data, more studies, to really understand the root causes and figure out what strategies actually work. And this is especially true in low and middle income countries, where we often have the biggest gaps in our knowledge. But here's the thing, doing this research is not easy. Scientists face some really specific roadblocks. For starters, there aren't a lot of standardized ways to even measure hesitancy. And it's really hard to tell if an intervention actually changed someone's mind about vaccines or if it just made it easier for them to get one. Untangling those two things is a huge challenge. Ultimately, when you take a step back, vaccine hesitancy points to a much bigger question, one that goes way beyond just this topic. In a world that is just flooded with information and misinformation, how do we build? And more importantly, how do we maintain trust in public health? Answering that question is going to be critical, not just for the challenges we face today, but for the future of all of our health.